Our presenter is Emily Payne. Emily Payne is the Disinfectant Level Quarterly Operating Report, DLQOR, Compliance Officer for the Drinking Water Quality Team in the Drinking Water Standards section. She has a BS in Biology with an emphasis on ecology from Texas Tech University. Emily has been with TCEQ since the fall of 2022, where she started as a natural resource specialist in the applications review and processing team within the Water Quality Division support section. Her current duties as a DLQOR compliance officer include DLQOR compliance, coding, data entry, and providing high-quality customer service. Please welcome Emily Payne.
Microphone on. Hi, good morning. It's good to see you all here. Hope you're having a good second day at PDW. Hope you're learning a lot. I have a lame water joke for y'all because everybody else is doing them, so I was like, well, why not? Okay. What is drinking water's favorite type of dance? Tap. Thank you for the pity laugh. All right, let's get started. We're going to talk about disinfectant residual monitoring. So, why do we monitor? The most important reason we want to monitor disinfectant residuals is because it's important to protect the public health, of course. Untreated water can have the potential to carry different harmful bacteria and viruses. So we treat the water so that we greatly decrease the chances of contracting those. We want to protect against microbial contamination due to low levels, since that allows microbial growth. And we also want to protect against adverse health effects due to high levels. This can cause overdosing and leads to health problems and is costly to remedy. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We've got common disinfectants. We are also going to talk about how to manage monitoring and reporting. We're going to talk about some reporting issues with the DLQOR. And we're going to do a really brief touch on some alternative disinfectants. So here we have the regulatory guidance documents for surface water and groundwater under the influence of surface water. You have the RG211 for monitoring and reporting surface water treatment plants. And for groundwater and purchased water, we've got the RG407, monitoring, analyzing, and reporting free chlorine and chloramines. You can find these by Googling TCEQ RG211 or TCEQ RG407. There's a lot of helpful information in these. I definitely recommend it if you've got any questions about monitoring for your system. So next we're going to talk about two of the more common disinfectants that we have. First we've got chlorine, which is the stronger oxidizer of the two. Smaller systems using chlorine don't have to worry about water age as much. And difficulty maintaining the residual, so that's good for those. The risks of free chlorine is that it does interact with organic material quite quickly, so this can create regulated contaminants or DBPs, such as trihalomethanes, haloacetic acids, chlorite, bromate. In higher doses, these can actually be pollutant and carcinogenic, so you have to watch out for those. Now, chloramines or total chlorine is not as strong as an oxidizer, but it is more persistent in the distribution system. This is good for larger systems that have low water use. It's much easier to maintain your residual. There's less DBP formation because the chlorine reacts with the ammonia. The risks is that ammonia leads to nitrification in the system, promoting bacterial growth. So this is the disinfectant residual rule. All public water systems shall properly disinfect water before it is distributed to any customer and must maintain acceptable disinfectant residuals within the distribution system. You can find this rule in the Texas Administrative Code, Title 30, Chapter 290, Subchapter F, 290.110. These requirements are a big asset. They do a great job of protecting our public health where we have such large distribution systems and higher temperatures, especially in the summers. So maintaining your residuals really is helpful for everyone. The added benefit of proper disinfection, well, again, it's going to protect public health. It's going to prevent emerging contaminants such as Naegleria fowleri, the brain-eating amoeba, which anytime I jump into a lake or something, this thing pops up in my mind like, oh, I'm going to get that. So, that's a great to protect against that. We've also got, it protects against Legionella, which can cause pneumonia, is very dangerous. Healthy residuals are going to combat these. And as long as you're maintaining your residuals above the minimum, these harmful organisms are going to be inactivated. You won't have to worry about them. All right, so now we're going to talk about the minimum disinfectant residual. So you want to make sure you know what residual you're running in your system. They should always be above the minimum. For systems that are running free chlorine, your minimum is going to be 0.2 milligrams per liter. Since it's a stronger oxidizer, you need less of it than the chloramine. So for chloramine, it's 0.5. It's a little less aggressive. If you have a system that is using both, it's also 0.5. However, you might want to revisit using both due to DBP issues. You can talk to our engineers in the TA room about it if you have more questions about that. Next, we have on the other side, we've got the maximum disinfectant residual. So that's going to be for both free chlorine and total chlorine, that is 4.0 milligrams per liter. Exceeding the maximum is costly and has negative health effects. Some of the side effects are stomach and throat irritation, nausea, vomiting, not good stuff. You don't want that for your customers. Single high samples are not going to trigger violations with us. However, we may give you a call just to notify you, and in the occurrence, you might need to lower or adjust your dosage. So next we have residual monitoring at the entry point. This is required for surface water and groundwater under the influence systems. It's not required for groundwater or purchased water, but it is strongly recommended. The distribution only tells you the end of your story. So if you don't measure your disinfectant level leaving your plant, you're not really knowing where you're starting. It benefits you to know what's coming out of your entry point because the entry point is the primary process control point. A good example of how this is helpful is, say you have a system with an entry point of 1.5 milligrams per liter. It's usually around there. It doesn't waver too much because you're good on your dosage. You know that the house all the way at the end of your distribution is probably testing around 0.85, maybe 0.83. One day you get a reading of 0.0 at your house on the end of that distribution system. However, you know your entry point is still at 1.5. This clues you in to know this is probably not an issue with your dosage. Might be an issue with cross-contamination. Maybe there's a broken line. There might be nitrification if you're a chloramine system. So this kind of helps you figure out what you need to do if it's not your dosage that's the problem. There's also a lot of great information on entry points in the RG 384, which is about developing monitoring plans, so you can also look that up. I would like to note also entry point samples, they can't replace the required distribution samples. They're just recommended, so they're just for you to know how your dosage is working. So next we have residual monitoring in the distribution system. This is going to tell you the minimum requirements of how often you're going to take residuals. For groundwater and purchase systems, if you have less than 750 people or less than 750 population or less than 250 connections, you're going to be testing once every 7 days. If you've got more than 750 people and that's important there that it's more than 250 connections, that's going to be daily. So you could have a population that's under 750, but if you've got 256 connections, you're still going to have to do daily residuals. You're also going to take a residual whenever you take your back T samples. So this is kind of a little graph just showing the size of the system versus how many coliform samples per month, and then the number of distribution sites you're going to have. As you can see, the system gets larger. You need to have more coliform samples. You need to have more distribution sites. Next is the collection sites. Since your system is like a living organism, you're not going to get usually the same residual throughout. It's usually going to vary. And you know what's best on your system. You know where your pipes are underground. You want to be mindful in choosing your representative sites. So make sure that that's representative of your system, that your sampling is rotating through all those sites. And you can also choose the same sites for residuals as coliform sites. This is just a little graphic showing an example of a distribution system with its sites. Since their population is 3,700, they're going to take daily samples. They need at least 5 sample sites. So it's dispersed out fairly well. You want to make sure you've got sites with low water age and high water age. If you only had sites on the left side of that Sawmill Road right there, that's only giving you a fourth of your story. So you want to make sure you're choosing good sites throughout the whole distribution system. So these are the minimum requirements for analyzing chlorine and chloramines. Make sure you've got your EPA-approved methods. Make sure that you're measuring plus or minus 0.1 milligram per liter. Check against the chlorine standard, and you can find more information about these in the RG documents provided. Next, we are going to do reporting. So for surface water and groundwater under the influence, we have the SWMOR, or as my coworkers quaintly call it, the SMOR. This is going to be due by the 10th of the month following that monitoring period, which is monthly. So your January report is going to be due February 10th, February report, March 10th. And so on. For systems using groundwater or purchased water, we have the DLQOR, or Disinfectant Level Quarterly Operating Report. This is due on the 10th day of the month following the monitoring period, which is quarterly. That means first quarter is January through March, so you're going to turn that in April 10th. Second quarter is April through June, so you're going to turn that in July 10th, and then so on. For DLQOR reporting, we have 2 methods to turn this in. It's either online through Steers or on paper form. Unfortunately, we do not accept them through fax or email. Then the document is not official. I do recommend using Steers. It's easy to use once you figure out how the website works. It's free. You can look at all your saved DLQORs from 3 years back. You can look at previous submissions. You can save a report and go back to it later if maybe there's something you needed to add to it. It's super useful, and the day that you submit on Steers is the day that we receive that report. Whereas when you mail it, it's up to the mail how fast it's going to get to us. So this is an example of the DLQOR. Whenever you're filling these out, just pay close attention to all the fields required on there. At the beginning, you're going to choose your quarter, your year, PWS ID, PWS name. That ID is going to be that TX number with the 7 digits, and then your disinfectant type. And we're going to go into a little more detail about how to fill out this report. So we have the monthly summary. These are the first few boxes on there. You're going to, of course, choose your month, and then you're going to average all of your residuals that you had for that month, and then you're going to add them all together, divide by the number that you took. That's going to be your average. The next little square is the number of residuals collected. So again, how many residuals did you take that month? Was it 7? Was it 31? More or less. The next column is the number of residuals below minimum. This is going to be any residuals that you took that were below 0.2 for free chlorine or below 0.5 for a total chlorine system. So make sure you're including that data in there. You're going to include the number of readings that you took that were below and the percentage. And then the next column over is the number of no residuals. What that means is any residuals that you took that were 0.0 milligrams per liter. You're going to put that there. You're also going to include, if you did get readings of 0.0, since that's below minimum, you're also going to include it in the below minimum column. So make sure you are, if you got both of those, make sure you fill them both out. I also like to note there's the PWS activity. That was the PWS active this month. Make sure that you're checking yes or no for that too. Sometimes it's easy to miss. Next, we have the quarterly summary, and that is going to be your average of all those averages you had for your monthly averages. You're just going to add those 3 up and divide that by 3. And then you've got your lowest disinfectant residual for the quarter. That's going to be your single lowest reading that you took out of all the readings for that entire quarter. It's not the lowest average. I know that some systems have put that before. Just make sure you're doing single lowest reading and then the single highest reading out of all those residuals for that quarter. This is the Steers contact information. We have a Steers user guide. You can Google DLQOR E2 reporting, TCEQ. This is the Steers website, and if you want to find it, you can just Google Steers TCEQ or steerstexas.gov. You can also contact me for these. I can send you the E2 user guide. It's super helpful. It is a step-by-step process in creating a Steers account, and it also tells you how to submit the DLQOR. It's very useful. At the end of the show, I'll have my contact info up here. Feel free to reach out to me if you would like a copy of the user guide. This is what the Steers website looks like. You've got your login up there. You can also, if you have to create an account, underneath the login, it says I need, and there's that second option to create a new account, and you'll go through that process. So this is what the DLQOR looks like on Steers. It looks slightly different, but it is all the same data fields. Make sure whenever you're filling it out that if you don't have any number below minimum or readings that are 0.0 for number no residuals, that you're putting zeros there. Otherwise, it'll tell you there's an error on your form. You'll have to redo it. Another thing I would like to point out on this, when you're submitting these, at the very bottom, it doesn't show it on here, but it has several options like exit, save, validate, and then on the far right is submit. If you don't press submit, then we don't receive that report. If you just validate and save, that just saves it on your end. So make sure you're submitting your report on there. You'll get a confirmation email too whenever you do. So some frequent issues that we see with the DLQOR is sometimes the PWS ID might be incorrect. Make sure you're including that 7-digit number. Just double check that. Sometimes it'll be a 6-digit number. Sometimes you might have multiple systems. You accidentally put the wrong number for that system. We'll reach out to you with if there are any errors. So just make sure you're paying attention to your PWS ID. Type of disinfectant not reported, make sure you're including that because we don't know what you're running in your system. We can't look at previous reports and fill that in for you because you may have switched to chloramine or switched back to chlorine. So make sure you're including that. Missing signature, if the document isn't signed, it's not official. So if it's missing its signature, you will have to mail us a new report if you've mailed it in. For active status does not match the data. That's that PWS activity that I pointed out. Just make sure you're checking yes or no whether your system was active that month or not. Monthly summary does not match the quarterly summary data. So that's like if your averages are maybe like if the lowest residual was 0.2, but over here one of your averages was 0.15. Well, we know that's not correct, so that data needs to be rechecked. So now we're going to talk about 2 alternative disinfectants really quick. It's chlorine dioxide and ozone. These are both stronger oxidizers than free chlorine and total chlorine. However, they are more unstable, and they're both pretty costly to use. Chlorine dioxide is less likely to form DBPs than chlorine, which is cool. It does produce chlorite as a disinfectant residual, and there's more information about chlorine dioxide in the RG503. Ozone produces bromate as a disinfectant byproduct because it reacts with bromide. So that's another regulated contaminant you have to look at. They are both very strong oxidizers, but again, they are more costly. So for record keeping, make sure that you're keeping your records on site where they're easy to access. We may ask you to see the records if there's any issue with calculations. Especially on the DLQOR, maybe the averages are just looking a little off or something like that. We may ask to see the record. So just make sure you have those available. It is required for certain compliance reports to have those records. And make sure also that your lab approval form is up to date. So the importance of good data, of course, these are the requirements we give you, but there are a lot of benefits to keeping good data. You're better equipped to handle with issues in disinfection. You'll know ahead of time what might be going on with your system, maybe even before the customer notices. Again, you're protecting public health. That's a big deal. That's very important. And, you're preventing a variety of microbial challenges. So that's a very important one. You're minimizing violations and fines, and you're keeping your customers happy because they're not, complaining about their water tasting or smelling off because you're on point with your residuals. So this is a contact info for our drinking water standards section. That's the general phone line you can call. The DBP email, I check that if you ever have questions about chlorines, chloramines. If you have questions about the DLQR, you can contact there. For steers, that's the steers help desk contact. That's really for if you forget like your password or your username. That's the kind of stuff you'd want to contact steers help desk with. If you have any problems with your DLQRs on steers, you're going to contact me because they'll just send you to me anyway. There's also the SWMR sweater contact. That's just SWTR at Texas or at tceq.texas.gov. And then our website, of course, is tceq.texas.gov. There's also additional FMT assistance. This is great for financial, managerial, and technical assistance. If you have any issues or questions about your system that you need help, maybe learning how to take your residuals correctly or anything like that, they can come on site to you. It's free for you. You can talk to them remotely. Definitely recommend using that if you ever need help. And finally, this is my contact info. Any questions about DLQORs, any questions about your free chlorine, your total chlorine, feel free to reach out to me. That is also my direct phone number too there. And that is it for me.